Welcome to the Alaska Tribal Transportation Technical Assistance Program. The webinar series that we do. The webinar today is being presented by Katie Hannon, who is an injury prevention specialist, and she is presenting on Backcountry Preparedness, Come Home Safely. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the AIDC YouTube channel and the Alaska TTAP playlist within a few days. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank the Alaska Tribal Technical Assistance Program, UAF, and Hillary Strayer for giving me the opportunity to share my presentation here today. I would also like to thank Mike Buck from Alaska Safe Riders for sharing his resources with me. So we can get started. Just a little bit about myself. I am from Koyuk. My parents are Bob and Lola Hannon. My grandparents are Roger and Lolita Nusuk. I come from a big family spread out in the Norton Sound region. I am married to Martin Lewis, and we have 5 children, Peyton, Piper, Paige, and Glacier, and Marty Jr. And here's some pictures that I wanted to share of the things that we like to do, subsistence activities, moose hunting, cutting fish, putting away seal oil, picking berries, fishing. More about me, I've been working in the injury prevention program for the last 5 years. I'm currently in the Injury Prevention Fellowship Program with the Indian Health Service and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. As the Injury Prevention Coordinator, my main focus has been traumatic brain injury prevention. So I work a lot with giving out helmets in the region. Injury prevention is a huge program in itself with other services like fire prevention, drowning prevention, and a variety of prevention items that I offer in the injury prevention store. And I'm just going to share a couple of pictures of our events before we get started with today's topics. This is a big event that I host every summer, is the bike rodeo. You could see that there are snowmobile and ATV helmets offered at this event. So today's topics will be covering the importance of proper planning and preparedness, how to avoid potential hazards, key concepts of avalanche awareness, ATV and snowmobile safety, or snow machine, like what we say in the region, proper steps to follow in an emergency. And then I just wanted to note that I wanted to let everyone know on the Zoom call that if you have a question, feel free at any time to unmute and ask. I don't usually save questions for the end because I like having an engaged audience. So this topic is a big one, the importance of proper planning and preparedness. I listed here on the slide some of the questions that I share with kids or youth in the region when I go to the schools and young adults at community events. These are some of the questions that we ask before they travel. We have resources too, like trip plans, both with the state troopers and Alaska Safe Riders. They have one that you can print out. It's a really good, convenient checklist to use, and I can attach it at the end as a resource. But the questions that I'll be going over on Zoom today are: to prepare for traveling, are you physically capable of traveling with a snow machine for a long distance? Are you able to lift the snow machine if you get stuck? These are all the questions that you should ask yourself before you travel. Do you have a helmet that properly fits you? Does the snow machine run properly? Do the brakes work? Do the headlights work? Do the taillights work? Do you have enough food and water? Do you have the gear that you will need in case of an emergency or if you break down? Do you have an inReach? And does it work? And do you know how to use it? And do you have experience with traveling those particular trails that you'll be on? So for those of you guys that don't know what an inReach is, it is a GPS that you can text with. So it also it's better than a cell phone because you have service anywhere with it. And our program has 5 inReaches that we rent out to people that need them. We can ship them out to the villages if they want to use them for hunting or traveling between villages. So a Garmin inReach is a device that you can use to text when you're out of cell service. It is also a GPS, like I said, and it's great to have in case of any kind of emergency while you're out traveling. I encourage anyone who travels to use it, and feel free to reach out to us if you need to rent one. All right, this one is another big one. I have more notes. I didn't want to like put too many notes on the slide for people to read, but I'll read off of them. So how to avoid potential hazards. Examples of potential hazards would be thin ice or broken ice, bad weather, wind, whiteout, bad visibility, extreme cold temps, and holes in the snow that the rider may not or may get stuck in and not be seen, like falling in, like those holes between creeks and rivers. When you're riding on the trail, it looks like snow, but it's not. You can get stuck or get injured in one of those. So how to avoid potential hazard. Always check the weather before you leave. Never travel alone. Do a tech inspection on your ride before taking off. Bring extra parts and tools for your snow machine. These are just some to name a few. There are more on the checklist. So, and if you don't know or you're unsure, just ask. Ask an experienced rider for advice about the trails and safety. Don't ever be ashamed to ask if you don't know. There are a lot of experienced riders out here in our region that would be more than willing to share their advice to help others stay safe. And I shared this iron dog picture because I like working with the iron dog and doing presentations in the school and the communities. So I added a slide in here because I'm not sure if people know how to check the weather before they travel. So how can you check the weather before travel? There are apps on your phone that can help you check the weather before you travel, and they are quite handy to use. You can ask somebody to help you check the weather. You can look it up online to see the forecast. I attached the NOAA website as a resource, but here's a picture of the logo for NOAA, and it's a good way for you to check the weather before traveling. All right, key concepts of avalanche awareness. This is where I needed Mike Buck's help because I didn't have very much experience in avalanche prevention and awareness. To be honest, I've never seen an avalanche in my whole entire life. I've only heard about them. But people get caught in avalanches, can die from suffocation, trauma, or hypothermia. An average of 28 people die in avalanches in the US every winter. That's a stat I got from FEMA. An avalanche is a large amount of snow moving quickly down a mountain. People caught beneath the heavy snow may not be able to dig out. And here are some ways to protect yourself from an avalanche. Get training on how to recognize the hazardous conditions and locations to avoid. Learn how to properly use safety equipment, and sign up for alerts or current avalanche dangers. There's also an app on your phone you can use for that as well. Use proper equipment. This should include helmets, materials to create pockets of air if trapped. So you have better chances of surviving an avalanche if you have a helmet on to help you breathe. And then use devices to support rescue, and use a guide you're familiar with, and always have a buddy. And my resources are both Alaska Safe Riders and FEMA for these 2 slides. And here's a better picture of an avalanche and what it may look like. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Katie, this is Hillary.
Oh, hi, Hillary.
Hi, have you ever heard of an avalanche occurring in the Norton Sound area? Is there like a place? Because I
No,
know
the only
on,
place that I've ever heard of an avalanche was in the interior, but people in our region do backcountry riding when they're setting traps and stuff. Like I've been back in the hills, but I've never seen an avalanche. I've only heard of an avalanche in McGrath, which was fatal. And that was when I was a child. Like I barely remember it, but I remember my dad talking about it. But so I feel like people with more experience with avalanches would be people that have to ride the Iron Dog Trail. Like they would be probably at risk riding like through avalanche trails, I think, is where the McGrath avalanche accident happened between McGrath and Anchorage, if I remember correctly. But no, as far as I know, and I could ask, um, I haven't heard of any avalanches in our region.
I'm just thinking it might be interesting to have a map of where avalanches have occurred so that people would know what places to avoid or what places to be cautious around.
I can make a note of that and I will ask Mike Buck because he probably has that map.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Hillary. So moving on to snowmobile safety, I just wanted to share this picture of the president of Iron Dog, Mike Vassar, talking about snowmobile, mostly helmet safety at this event, but a lot of snowmobile safety. At the halfway banquet, it's not just like presentations and helmet giveaways and stuff. They actually get to sit with racers and listen to their stories of um, obstacles on the trail, like they talk about this happened there. And I also feel like it's a good learning experience because when they talk about it and the location and it's near our villages, like it helps the kids know like this happened to this Iron Dog team in this location. Like I need to be careful of this happening to me when I travel through there. Oops. And I have more on snowmobile safety in my notes. Um, this target audience is for um, grade school through junior high. Like in the villages, kids are a lot younger when they start driving as compared to like people who are riding in the lower 48. And it's because Alaska doesn't really enforce the underage driving laws in the villages. Like if you come out here in the Norton Sound region and travel to the villages, you'll see kids driving that are not of age. So not so much between villages, but in the village. So I talk about safety of like knowing how to operate the vehicle before you drive. Um, and then for the high school kids, they're more at risk of traveling between villages. And I know this because I was that high school kid traveling between villages for basketball tournaments or for Iditarod or whatever events that were going on. And a lot of my snow machine safety training comes from like my brother and my dad and my grandparents. Like it wasn't, I never read in a book that or had this kind of education in school where we talked about snowmobile safety. Growing up, I missed out or I didn't have that opportunity. So I'm trying to bring that into the schools so it could be more normalized for the kids to talk about traveling safety. And I was lucky to have it at home, but not in schools. So some things that I ask kids about like helmets and traveling, proper fitting helmets with eye protection, warm layers of clothing. We make checklists. We let them write down like what they're gonna do or what they would do if they traveled. And then like water and snacks. I know one place that kids like to travel with their parents in the springtime is Hot Springs. And a couple of the villages in the Norton Sound region have the opportunity to travel to a hot springs. Um, in Koyuk, a risk factor for going to hot springs would be open water. And we talk about that, like driving on the ice, if it's safe enough to drive on the ice or if it's not. So always have an adult with you or an experienced driver or somebody who knows the trail, because you could get lost. I like to share with the kids that my own experience, that I was lost in a snowstorm for 7 hours and it was not fun. It was the scariest thing in my life. So we talk about like checking the weather and all those kinds of things. One thing I like to remind the kids too is to be in the know your abilities, know the machine's abilities, know your riding area, and know the weather conditions. For example, if you can't make it up a hill, don't go up it. You're putting yourself at risk, like to get stuck or tip over or hurt yourself, get injured. Another example is if you don't know the trails, then don't go on them unless you are with somebody that does know them or has experience on them. I printed off Alaska snowmobile laws to share with communities and to share with the students. I didn't put them on the slides, but they're on their resources. So I included on the resource page, the state of Alaska website, a state trooper's travel plan. And then it talks about operating while intoxicated. And like, sorry, hold on. I did not put the website on here. I have Alaska Safe Riders website, but I'll add that in there for the resources. But other resources are your local elders, search and rescue. Cultural knowledge is a big one for traveling because they have the most experience of like on the land and the trails. Alaska Safe Riders, I should add Iron Dog in there. YouTube safety videos, I'm surprised at how many safety videos there are made in Alaska as I was checking them out. I think it would be good for people to share with their kids and young adults to watch those safety videos, especially when they're made around your area. And then camp, another resource. And then I just shared another picture of my family playing out in the snow. Does anybody have any questions? No? Moving on. Oops. This is the notes that I have for this slide. Snow machining can be a wonderful activity for families to spend time together and enjoy the beauty of winter. To keep snow machining fun and safe requires adults to role model safe behavior and assess youth readiness to participate in snowmobile recreation. How are youth injured while snow machining? As drivers, due to lack of experience or physical ability to control the weight and speed of a snowmobile, is a huge risk factor for injuries for youth in snowmobiling. And as passengers, due to their risk-taking behavior, excessive speed and alcohol use of other snow machine operators is a risk factor. And as bystanders and pedestrians and occupants, they're more likely to get hit by a child that's driving and not like experienced enough to drive. Even if it's a 200 or a 120, if like those injuries occur or can happen when kids are driving. We have to be careful for the pedestrians. That's why there should always be adult supervision. Does anyone else have any questions? I feel like I talked really fast for my 3 pages of notes. If there are no other questions at this time, I just wanted to thank you guys for hopping on, and please reach out to me if you ever need help in sharing safety traveling tips with your youth, or reach out to me if you need to rent an inReach to travel in the region, or if you want to learn how to operate an inReach. Feel free to ask me any questions or make any suggestions about the injury prevention program. Guiana.
Well, thank you, Katie. There's one thing that was posted on chat for everyone's reference, is that the Alaska Avalanche School hosts training from Nome to Sitka for children and adults, and it is alaskaavalanche.org.
I'm gonna take that and jot it down for myself because I did not know that.
All right, so thank you, whoever posted that. Appreciate that information.
I can't see the chat, so I'm sorry if anybody is chatting any questions. Nothing else.
No, and everybody has permission to speak. But if nobody else has anything more, thank you for coming. I'm going to stop recording.